Hello and welcome to the nether regions of our boat. Currently, I am directly underneath the living room. Anybody up there? Well, got two answers. Today we are replacing this guy here. God, it's really big. The water heater. So it's quite old, as you can tell. And just over the last couple weeks, it started to fluctuate in this heat delivery. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how these water heaters work, why they are relatively so small compared to what you might be used to in your house. But most importantly, well, as you can see here, we are a wood boat. I tell you what, let's show you what this boat looks like. This is our home, and this is where we live in Seattle, Washington. That's me, Eric. My wife, Roshri, and these are our kids. We got tired of the usual corporate America, long hours, living for the weekends and living for retirement. We decided to make a change. We moved out the Pacific Northwest. We cut our expenses, we cut our income, and we decided we were going to focus on what matters most. Life, experiences, spending time with our kids, spending time with our friends and family, making the most of every single day, and truly living life to its fullest. So come join us as we explore this world. It's a lot to see and a lot to do. Let's get going. Alright, here is what we are going to replace it with. So this is made by Kuma. Seen this brand pop up quite a bit, both online, and this is the brand they carry at West Marine. Obviously West Marine being a very reputable marine company, so therefore I trust it. As I mentioned, water heaters for boats are quite a bit more expensive than they are for your house. Smaller and more expensive. Retail on this one is $4.99. Thanks to my pro account from work, I was able to save a little bit of money. But as you can see, they're quite expensive. And as I mentioned, they're smaller. So you got three sizes here. We went to 11 gallons. As I mentioned, what we've got down there is 8 gallons, so this will be a good improvement. And you can see from the picture here as well, there's your inlet and outlets for your heat exchanger off of the engine, then your hookups for both your water coming in and your hot water going out. Now I shut the water off, I shut the water heater off last night, and then I shut the water pump off, so now I'll need to run the water out of the system so that it's empty. And then let's get this guy out of the box and see how it looks. Alright, so flap open. Here we see Manual de Utilisation. Oh, there we go. Owner's manual. Pretty straightforward. So, yeah, a good size unit here. There's the hookups. Heat exchangers will transfer a lot of the hardware that's already on the other one. Have to take a look at it, of course. I'm assuming this piece of styrofoam comes out. It does not, so it's all going to... Oh, it does. Think, Runa. Ta-da! So yeah, it's a nice big size. It should fit through the opening. If it doesn't, we're going to the floor. That's how boats are made. You can go through the floor. Nice aluminum case all the way around, and I'm sure plenty of insulation on the inside. Electrical hookups all being here. Should be pretty straightforward. Inlet for your wiring there. Hot water out. Exchanger. Cold water in, pressure release valve, and then to drain your units right there. Oh gosh, what is it? Alright, back here in the belly of the beast. So, this is a marine water heater. Marine water heaters are considerably smaller than what you will find in your house. One, that's because of space. Most importantly, you don't have as much space here in a boat as you do in your home. There's not lots of extra places to put it. We are in the bilge here. That is the absolute bottom of the boat right there. This is your cold air intake, your fresh water intake here. So that is a seat cock underneath it. That is connected directly into the water. So when I open these handles, fresh water flows in, and that is what essentially cools your engines. I'm going to be doing a water pump replacement video here, so look for that. These are closed loop systems, FYI. So what happens is you have constant coolant flowing through this engine, and then the water from the sea here cools the water, which then cools your engine. That way you never have salt water, etc., going through your engine. There's your heat exchanger back there. So we'll cover that more in the water heater, or in the water pump replacement. But for now, here's the water heater. As you can tell, it's quite old. I mean, we've probably got, it's got to be 20, 30 years old. And that's just too long for this. A lot of new systems on here. There's our pressure tank. We've got a nice UV filtration system. These engines have been rebuilt. You don't want to mess around with water heaters. They're under a lot of pressure, especially marine ones, because they operate at a higher temperature. So from that smaller space, you don't have to use as much hot water to mix for your showers. That's why... hotter temperature equals more pressure. So there's no point in sitting around and messing around with this guy. We're going to get these lines disconnected, get it replaced. Now, the interesting thing about marine water heaters, it is electric. It is 110. You know, you're not running this off your batteries while you're out at sea, for instance. But what is different about them is that you also have these guys can plumb up with a heat exchanger inside. You see the red hoses coming out here. One would be off the both sides of the engine here, so that when you're actually underway at sea, you are plumbing this coolant of the engine through the water heater, so you always have hot water. It's essentially an on-demand hot water heater from your engine, in this case our starboard engine of the two. We haven't used that yet because obviously we don't spend a whole lot of time out on the ocean. We're mostly just here at the dock, but we're certainly going to replumb those systems back up and have that there. It is certainly a benefit to have, especially if you start getting out in the water. And therefore it's essentially free heat as well. So pretty straightforward. We're going to track down the wires here, get everything cut out, undo these lines, and get this tank out of here. So not the easiest fit in here. I honestly could take these floorboards out here. This is the living room, but it doesn't do me good right here. Pretty straightforward. Looks like I got two strap brackets here. Get these bolts out. Actually, release these straps, free this guy up. Just making sure those turn first before I start breaking everything else free. Then I got my water lines here. You know, a lot of this is probably going to transfer directly over. We might have to source some parts, but a lot of fittings here that I'm hoping will correlate with what we have on the new tank. So I'll crack these water lines here off at the compression fittings. Bend those gently out of the way. There's copper. Pull these two off here. These are lines. Now this is going to have coolant in the system, so as soon as I pull it off, coolant's going to want to come out. So I'm going to get these hoses up quickly and higher than the height of the coolant system on the engine. That'll keep the coolant from flowing out. Plug them with the rag as well. Try to tuck them in somewhere that's above that line. And then here's my electrical connection on this one. Pretty straightforward. You got your positive, neutral, and your ground. Really straightforward. Obviously, I have the power turned off to the hot water heater. And the water tank system is drained as well. So we turn the freshwater pump off, which is right down there, and ran the sinks dry. That way, anything comes out of here is not under pressure; it's just residual. So get those out. Now it looks like the new one's gonna be a pretty tight fit, 16 inches. So we're gonna get this guy out of the way, see exactly how much room we have. Worst case scenario, we might have to take this water heater back and get the smaller size, which we really don't want to do. This is 8 gallons. The new one is 11 gallons, which is going to give us even more capacity for the family. We really don't want to go down to 6 gallon. So I think before we did that, we would get a longer cylindrical one like this. But 16 inches is what we got to work with. I think we can make it work just by pushing this hose over a little bit, moving some hose clamps around so that nothing rubs, nothing chafes on the lines, etc. Alright, we got the pipes, let me try to say here, pipe wrench on the pipe lines, and oh, you got a little water coming out. Now this is okay. If you're not familiar with boats, this part of the boat is actually designed to have water in it. I try to keep it as clean and nice as I can. Certainly no oil leaks from the engine, but all that water drains down into the bilge, and as you can see, there's always water in there. That's just product of rain from the outside. Not as much leaking from the inside. That's a bad thing, but rain from the outside comes in, the lazarette at the back, and it just accumulates down here. That's just honestly a natural part of boats. They do accumulate water in the bilge, unless it's completely sealed. Honestly, the only place I really have that water come from is the back of the boat, where water comes in around the hatches and such, and just comes in. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to have some water in here. It keeps the wood nice and wet, but I do try to keep it nice and clean. So pop these two lines off there. Here's the hot water line. There it is. So as I said, I can gently bend this out of the way. It's copper. I won't just take it and just crank it, because that might kink right here. I'm going to open it up. Excuse me. I might not just pull it really tight here, because it might kink it right at the top. I might gently open this radius by opening here a little bit, then here a little bit, then here a little bit, just to pull that copper out of the way. Just want to be careful, because it can kink a 90 real tight and real quickly. That's not what you want. So that's the hot water one off. I'll do the same with the fresh water. Pull them out of the way, and then we'll start working on these heat exchanger hoses here. We have struck it rich. I wanted to, I could prop this guy up so it wouldn't leak out, but honestly, I don't want to carry the weight of the water out. I'd rather drain it in here anyway. So let's drain it out here into the bilge. That's what it's made for. Alright, here is where we are at this point. As you can see, everything is disconnected. So I have taken the hoses off from the engine. Here they are. Well, let's get this big old light out of the way. I have pulled them off and just simply tucked them up underneath the hoses so that they're above the coolant system so they don't leak out, because as soon as I disconnect them, of course, coolant started pouring out. Now there is coolant in this here water heater. I highly recommend that you collect it environmentally. It's a little difficult in the bellies of this boat. That tank is heavy enough as it is. I'm going to try to dump this water heater back into a container so that coolant all pulls into a container. Not that I'll reuse it per se, but one, it gives me a chance to look at it. Secondly, that way I can take it out and dispose of it correctly. Fresh water is obviously just fine. Some coolant did splash out here, as you can see. There's some greenness right there. That is an unfortunate place where water cannot drain out. I do have a freshwater hose down here. That's not going to work right now because the water system's not on. Okay, so we'll do that down the road. When we're all done, we'll get this all nice and cleaned up, get all the coolant sprayed off. So now I've got all the straps off the top of the water heater here. I'm going to start moving her around, tilting her around, and see. I don't have a lot of space here for getting out on top of these batteries, etc., where I am into this little hole here, but we should have enough. Just depending on the weight, it's going to be the awkward part. So let's try to get that coolant out of there, and we'll pull this guy out. Show you guys something if you're able to see here. See how many I can do this. Now, see this color of that water coming out, the cold water? It was fresh and nice and clean at first. That just goes to show that I had a lot of rust accumulation in the bottom of this tank. Thankfully on the parts where it never went through, but that's water that was coming through our water system. So, look at that. Very good to be getting this old guy out of here. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, that's not what I meant. Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Alright. Moving on. So, this guy's quite heavy. I'm going to attempt to pull it through this area right here. Now,
seriously tight quarters here.
oh, bam!
There she is.
As you can see, that's a lot of rust. It was time for this guy to go.
Oh, wow.
I don't know when this thing was made.
That'd be interesting to find out, though.
I tried to find.
How about, no, that's just the wattage
Here's
information.
a big label here. I have well, you blocked my light, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got service lights. It's 1500 watts, by the way. I didn't mention that. 1500 watts, which is the exact same wattage as the new tank. So it should pull on 12 or 13 amps. Watts divided by voltage is?
What?
Amps.
Hey, don't fall.
Okay. The baby up there. Rhoda, what are you doing?
Hi.
Alright, I'm going to show you guys with the light. Oh, that's as far as the light goes. Kind of what space I'm working with here. So you can see the brown water that came out of the bottom of the water here. Not good. Rusted out. Here's the big tubular bracket. Cylindrical bracket for the other one. Now, I have 16 inches on this new box. It's a square. I am thinking I have plenty of room. You can kind of see, I know this light's not great. Back there, that little, the red and all that, that is our shower pump. That's what pumps out the drain itself. I'm going to remove this entire round bracket, obviously. I don't know if I've got 16 inches between this rounded part here of the frame of the boat and these coolant pipes. But I do have enough clearance in the back there that I can slot the box in just behind. And this part of the frame there, as you can see, is more square-like on the back side of that cylindrical round part. Alright, here we are up in the galley, aka kitchen. Here's the old one, and here is the new one. Now, I'll tell you, right off the bat, the new one's a lot lighter. So this is a lot of, oh, that's a lot of pressure. And this is nothing. So, aluminum versus steel. I'm going to get like 5 extra horsepower out of this thing. I got to swap some fittings. As you can see, inlets and outlets are a little bit different. I have a much wider diameter here on these coolant pipes, and I believe I do on those. So that might take some downsizer. This always stays open. This is just if you want to drain or route your pressure release, but nothing should ever come out of here. This is if things go really bad, your shutoff doesn't happen, this will blow off and all the hot water blow out versus your tank exploding. The difference is here, the hot water outlet is not on this guy as it is on this one. Two parts of that system inside are completely separate. Obviously coolant flows through these to heat up the fresh water, which runs through these. So it's a completely separate system. It's purely mechanical, purely heat exchange, no electrical whatsoever. I cleaned up down there. I turned the water pump on and used the water shooting out of the copper line to clean up the space where that water heater was. And this is the entrance, by the way, galley. Hey, this is how we get in there from the galley. There's the old brackets. They're out now, so that's all nice and cleaned up. So I'm going to swap these over and make sure these threads match the same, because that's the most important part, and then get this guy in there, get it plumbed up, get the fresh water back on, then I can brainstorm downsizing these coolant pipes. Alright, so I got an adapter here, this guy, which will thread in onto here and give me another inch or so that theoretically I can then spin this and perhaps clear this electrical box here. Now, if that still doesn't give me enough clearance and I think it's going to work, then I have these instead. So I can just screw right into the tank and I'll just rebend the copper line, so instead of coming in at a 90 at an angle on the side, they'll come straight into the tank, just like that. So we'll see. I like to stick with the 90s because it'll keep the lines kind of flush coming off the wall here straight across. It'll look nicer, but if this plus an extension doesn't get it high enough to easily clear this, it's a moot point. I'll have to go straight out. Yay! Alright, as you might have seen in that struggle, I had a feeling that this half-inch, well, it wasn't going on well. That might be 5/8. I looked at the instruction manual, and it is 5/8. So, it's just a little too small. Half-inch there is not going to work, so that's $1.79 out the door. $3.19 out the door, actually. And unfortunately, that means that these 3/4 to half-inch adapters aren't going to do me any good. So I need to try to find a 3/4 to 5/8, which I am 99% sure they did not have there. So I might end up just bypassing that today and ordering those online, an adapter. That hose shouldn't go on. It should be snug, but it shouldn't be that difficult. Alright, electrical cover is off. Pretty straightforward. It even gives you a nice wiring diagram here on the inside. You can see on the left here, these are our, there we go, 3 wires coming in, black, white, and green. Green is a ground, so we're probably just going to pull that up and either just tie it right there on that ground one, or you could tie it right here to the ground part on the actual cover itself. Either way would be just fine. The white, as it shows, goes to the heater element itself. These wires were kind of tucked in the insulation here, but I'm going to pull them out. There's white. That goes to your heater element. Pretty straightforward. We're going to attach our white to our white, and then our black to our black, as it says, goes to the fixed temp, the high limit temp switch right there. So that's what this is, and this is a switch that if it gets too high temperatures, it cuts the power. So I think the most professional looking way is what I will do is I will make these connections inside the box. So I will run our electrical through here, come on the inside, make the connections inside, put the cover back on, and then I'll be able to slide this little doohickey in here, and it just goes in and essentially just slides in and crimps this wire tight in there and keeps it up to code. I cannot even begin to describe how much lighter this thing is than that steel tank. It's insane. I mean, like, unbelievable. Okay, all right. And the blue, of course, is just to protect it so I don't scratch the nice aluminum. I honestly probably leave it on there. I have a tendency to do that and protect this stuff just because then I feel like it always looks brand new. Oh, God. As I mentioned, clearance is limited. And, whew, wham bam balam, that's what I'm shooting for. So, it's looking good. I'll shimmy it over a little bit, give space there on those hose clamps down the side, but man, how nice does that look? And you get an extra foot of space here. I like it here towards that left side. Looks phenomenal. And then, of course, when you're all said and done, you get a couple screws on either side, lag bolts, however you want to do that. It's not going to need a lot. I'm not rocking the ocean here. And that is why you research things. So they didn't always run ground wires in the olden days. So that's why I hadn't forgotten this original red wire. See this cap on here? That's original, or at least original to when this wiring is put in. So how this works is your black wire is your power wire, and your white is your neutral. Those are the two you need to run things. This is a separate power wire. So imagine you're running a conduit to, say, a ceiling fan, and you had one switch works the fan, one works the light. This way you're running 2 power wires to the same place. So we're simply not going to do anything with the ground system. Doesn't need to be hooked up. Wasn't hooked up before. No need to deal with that on this system. So I've got my wire running through here. I put that little thing in there and it holds it tight in the connector. FYI, to get this guy spun on here and not have to use the extension, I had to remove this bracket right here because the 90 wouldn't spin. If you have something similar to this, just keep in mind when those screws came out, they're not threaded. There was a little nut on the back. So thankfully, I caught that was happening and put my fingers on the back. Just loosened up the back one, took this one out, swung it out of the way, got that 90 in there, and you can tell that's going to work well. I should have plenty of clearance there. Yeah. So now I'm going to do my caps. I'm going to spin them on here, my little orangey guys, white to white, black to black. And I left this red wire on the outside just in case I ever needed power here for some other obscure reason, not to mention this little cap wouldn't fit through the conduit holder. So white to white, black to black, get this cap back on, and then I'm going to hook up my water lines and get the thing powered on and get this water heating while I get screws in to hold it into the floor. And then once I get the water pressure up, I'll be able to use my water hose in here and rinse all this crap out, coolant, etc., and get this nice and clean. Alright, so there you can see electrical is all done. I have put the box cover back on. That little hole in the front is so you can probably push in and hit that reset switch if it does ever overheat, which it should not. Alright, when it comes to flared fittings, here's a little friendly hint. So I've got the cold water hooked up, by the way. Just being really careful, moving this, bending this around. It started to kink a little bit right here, but it's still fine. If it had kinked all the way to the 90, started to kink right there. If it had kinked all the way to the 90, then I might have had to get a new line, which would have made me upset. But these work by touching here. Now, it's the best thing to do is to pull this flare up the line and get to the end of this line, and so you can actually mate those up, get them tight, and then slide this down. This was not moving. It would spin, but it wouldn't pop up. So I hit it on the bottom with the pliers here a couple of times until, boom, it would get loose enough that I can pull it up, and then you can see the flare. And it's important there. Then you can match those flare points together so that you don't tighten it and have it off. You can put it together where it should be. Try and get this thing as perfectly in line as you can, and then you'll come down with a nut and tighten it while you still have that flare perfectly on there. Alright, well, as you can hear, the pump is on and no leaks. The hot water flare fitting there took a little coursing. I actually had to start the threads first and then push the line back on, just based on the way the thing had moved and bent around the ears. But as you can see, I've left great access for my heat exchanger lines once I get those on there. Plenty of room to get my hose clamp on there. Now, when you turn the hot water on, you're going to have a lot of air to purge out of the system. Just keep that in mind. We'll have some in the freshwater system as well, just based on the fact that everything's been open. Alright, so there she is, and everything is working. Get the dramatic fly-in shot right beside the starboard engine. Plumbed up. Water heater is on. No fuses tripping, etc. Even replaced the UV bulb and the water filtration system while we were here. Cleaned everything up. Used the hose down. So this is kind of built into the boat. There's a hose in the bilge here, and you just fresh water comes out. I'm going to add a 90 somewhere in here because that makes you a little leery that that's the only thing keeping water from constantly flowing in the engine compartment. But as you can see, so everything's nice and clean. Not painted, but clean. Really happy with it. So, ta-da! We're all done. Now, next video, onto that raw water pump right there.